Hi everyone, my name is James Knighton and this is my poster, Changing Perspectives in Student Services, Viewing Students as Customers. My mentor was Dr. McClure. Uh, my three guiding questions were, what are the arguments for and against viewing the students as customers in customer service models? Also, are there customer service models specifically for student services? And I did the actual research and findings part by interviewing faculty and staff at UNCW to see if they're implementing CSMs in their department and what findings they may have. Um, the research essentially supports the fact that students increasingly view themselves as customers first and students second. That, education is more of an investment now. And this is also, increasingly proven in the Supreme Court, beginning with Dixon versus the Alabama. Dixon versus Alabama State Board of Education in 1961, which states that higher education is a property right and that students were customers first, and therefore, we provide the product of service for the compensation paid for by the students. So with that said, I'll define my conceptual framework of what a CSM is. It is essentially strategies to achieve customer satisfaction. Um, it's strategies built upon, surveying and analyzing consumer demand and changing in order to meet the consumer demands to keep satisfaction. My background for this particular study is the contemporary generation of traditional students, which has many names: Gen Z, post millennials, the me generation. I call them iGen, mainly because they're the first generation that can vaguely remember time before smartphones. And that's one unique characteristic about them, is the fact that they are complete digital natives. They've never known a life without technology. And I have a part in my paper called Technology and the Consumer State of Mind, which discusses how their expectations are shaped by those experiences online and those free market experiences. And the best quote from the paper that I have is that iGen students' online wants and expectations carry over into the real world, which includes their expectations. So my focus is on how we can change, or how we can understand the generation to meet those changes in student expectation and satisfaction. The second column, I've discussed the guiding questions, which guided my literature summary, which I framed it around the arguments against and the arguments for viewing students as customers. The arguments against is that, the quality of education is under duress and the decline of academic rigor. Faculty's held hostage by surveys and student satisfaction, and that creates a pay-for-grade system with potential grade inflation. But mainly, the biggest argument was the student entitlement aspect. However, the arguments for pretty much state that CSMs are better aligned with the student's self-reported perceptions of themselves, and that it actually reframes that idea of student entitlement into customer or consumer rights, which, because increasingly students have consumer rights and they know it. And there's, so we need to know that too. So in that way, it also protects us from litigation, potential litigation. And on a more practical level, it increases morale, efficiency, and flexibilities in the systems. I discussed two customer service models. The first is Corbell's 4 pillars of customer service. Essentially, perfect product caring, delivery, timeliness, effective problem solving, which are all ways to make the student the center of their education. Care and delivery, for example, recognizes iGen's unique characteristics of having personalized knowledge, that sort of Netflix, or personalized service, that kind of Netflix kind of expectation that they have of service. The next is the customer relations model, which is more about building inbound and outbound connections, developing a competitive advantage by, having happy repeat customers. It's a very extensive system, but I like to quote that it's easier and less expensive to provide services to present students who would continue enrollment than to continuously have to recruit new students. So it's just, customer service models are not only good for the student, but it's good at the bottom line. So that's about placing students at the center of your business model. The third category is the research and finding. The purpose of my research was to assess, UNCW's faculty and about higher customer service models in higher education. And a secondary purpose was to assess UNCW student services to determine, where CSMs could be utilized with a concentration on one-stop centers. The methodology was a qualitative interviews. I interviewed 10 people using a questionnaire as a conversational outline. The participants were 10 participants. 9 were UNCW employees. I pulled them from the directory. They had to be an associate director or higher from, the 4 departments of admission, financial aid, the registrars, and academic support. One interview was a vice chancellor, and one outlier was the coordinator of the one-stop center, Kim, that I've already spoke about. The finding, the perception of IGEN students. Everyone agrees with the data that this is a very unique and unprecedented situation that requires rethinking on how we deliver service. The consensus is also that these IGEN characteristics are only going to increase with technology. The perceptions of customer service model, no surprise. The idea of customer service models are very unpopular, and there's a stigma against the phrase customer service. There's a concern from the staffs that, CSMs could be detrimental as it caters to the superficial demands and it's somewhat hand-holding. And discuss more specifically about one-stop centers, which is a consolidation of student services. The consensus was in support of the one-stop centers. They even had a consensus that these centers would improve service delivery and increase student satisfactions, but the primary concern was that one-stops can't perform specialized roles such as nuanced roles like a financial aid counselor or something. So my recommendations from it is UNCW would need a lot more surveys to be conducted to develop a more sophisticated understanding of the strengths and weaknesses in their service model. It's very decentralized. Those 4 departments operate on their own. So I think they have to be pulled together, and it's just going to take extensive surveying. Therefore, examine some soft consolidation through cross-training initiatives. That was recommended by everyone. And examine the idea of customer service center with universally trained workers with expanded hours, like the one center in the UNC system. Therefore, another surprisingly one to me was recommendation was to re-examine our policies or HR policies to encourage the practice of hiring from outside higher education, particularly from customer service related fields, and hire younger people that can relate to the current generation in higher roles. This is my references. I appreciate very much. Thank you for your time.